Welcome to the latest edition of this Warship TV special, with this edition dedicated to capturing the very latest naval action, highlights and movements as filmed by the Warship TV film crews nationwide. So please, sit back and relax as we enjoy some of the highlights coming up in this edition. At the end of March, HMS Portland returned to sea for the first time since 2017, having received an extensive LifeX refit at Devonport. And on the 7th of April, we see Portland as she is turned in the River Tamar as she prepares to head out to sea on sea trials. Portland is the second youngest Type 23 frigate, being commissioned into the fleet in May 2001, and her extensive 3-year refit at Devonport will mean she is able to continue serving the fleet until the mid-2030s, when she will be replaced by the new Type 26 and Type 31 frigates. As part of her LifeX refit, Portland was fitted with new Artisan 3D radar, as well as vastly improved air defence capabilities provided by Sea Scepter missiles. These replaced her previous Seawolf and now give a range in excess of 25 kilometres. In addition, she is also fitted with anti-ship harpoon launchers, as well as anti-submarine Stingray torpedoes. On the 7th of April, the Royal Navy's newest warship, HMS Spey, visited Devonport Naval Base. The fifth and final Batch 2 River-class offshore patrol vessel, Spey was commissioned into the fleet on the 7th of January 2021 and is seen as she heads up the River Tamar towards the Narrows at Devil's Point. The final Batch 2 River-class, she is the 8th warship to bear the name Spey, being named after the River Spey in northeast Scotland. Heading into Devonport Naval Base, she was due to spend the next few weeks based there undergoing operational sea training. With a displacement of 2,000 tons, HMS Spey is considerably larger than her Batch 1 predecessors, and like her sisters, she has a mess deck for 50 Marines in addition to accommodating her complement of 50 crew, and it's anticipated that the ship will spend around 30 days at sea each year. HMS Spey is able to perform a multitude of roles, from the protection of territorial waters to a humanitarian role in times of disaster, and is also more than capable of intercepting drug traffickers and smugglers. And in these roles, the ship's company has trained extensively to work with Royal Marine Commandos in board and search operations. On the 9th of April, HMS Westminster, one of the Royal Navy's Type 23 frigates, enters Devonport Naval Base. Built by Swan Hunter Shipyard on Tyne and Wear, she was launched on the 4th of February 1992, being commissioned into the fleet on the 13th of May 1994, and is today normally based at Portsmouth. She is the second warship of the Royal Navy to bear the name Westminster, and as a fleet-ready escort ship, she recently returned to service with the fleet after one of the longest and most comprehensive revamps in her 29-year lifespan. HMS Westminster was returning home to her base at Portsmouth, following a 15-week deployment protecting the UK's interests in home waters, where she had served in the North Atlantic and off Northern Europe. This deployment had taken her from the Baltic to the Channel Islands, and her duties also included monitoring Soviet activity, including passing Russian submarines. Her deployment also took in various trials as well, including training and exercises, as well as working with the RAF's new P-8 maritime patrol aircraft. Throughout these duties, because of COVID, her deployment was undertaken during strict infection control measures. The second time that she has undertaken a deployment like this since the pandemic began. One of two amphibious transport dock ships built for the Royal Navy, HMS Albion was built by BAE Systems in Barrow-in-Furness and was launched on the 9th of March 2001, being commissioned into the fleet in June 2003. HMS Albion, together with her sister HMS Bulwark, have always been based in Devonport, and at almost 22,000 tonnes displacement are the largest vessels in the Royal Navy after the new Queen Elizabeth carriers. HMS Albion is the 9th warship to bear the name, which is an ancient name for Great Britain, with the first ship being a 74-gun warship of 1763, while the current HMS Albion's direct predecessor was an aircraft carrier that was decommissioned in 1973. On the 15th of April, we see Albion as she is carefully manoeuvred down the River Tamar at Devonport, as she was moved from 14 Wharf to No. 1 Jetty. This was to allow the space she normally occupies in Frigate Alley to be freed up for two visiting United States Navy warships. HMS Albion, along with her sister Bulwark, form a major part of the Royal Navy's amphibious warfare capability, and together their mission is to deliver the punch of the Royal Marines ashore, by air and by sea. As HMS Albion passes South Yard, as she is manoeuvred downstream to number 1 jetty, we note how the White Ensign and Union Jacks are both lowered to half-mast, as a mark of respect to His Royal Highness Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, who died on the 9th of April. A few days later, we see Albion as she leaves Devonport and passes Mount Wise as she heads out to sea. One of the Royal Navy's 2 amphibious assault ships, these 22,000-ton vessels are tasked to act as the command platform for the Royal Navy's Amphibious Task Force and Landing Force commanders when embarked. Albion has been described as the Royal Navy's Swiss Army knife, and for very good reason, as this amphibious transport dock is capable of carrying 400 sailors and Royal Marines. Her loading dock is packed with the trucks, machinery and watercraft that her crew use to carry out their duties, and she also carries emergency supplies for use in disaster relief operations, from food supplies to water pumps. In recent years, the future of the 2 Albion class has been under speculation, under various defence reviews. But in November 2020, it was announced that both ships would be retained under current plans until the mid-2030s, with Albion decommissioning in 2033, followed by her sister, HMS Bulwark, a year later. And following the departure of Albion, We now go from one of the Royal Navy's largest ships to one of the smallest, HMS Express. A member of the P2000 class, these coastal training craft are primarily used to support the Royal Navy's university units, with HMS Express attached to the University of Wales. HMS Express is certainly one of the service's smallest commissioned vessels, with a displacement of just 54 tons. She normally has a complement of 5, with accommodation for up to 12 undergraduates, and is powered by twin Rolls-Royce diesel engines which generate almost 1600 horsepower, giving a top speed of 20 knots. HMS Scott is an ocean survey vessel of the Royal Navy and is the only ship in her class. Built by Appledore shipbuilders in Bideford, North Devon, she was launched on the 13th of October 1996 and commissioned into the fleet in June the following year. Viewed from Tor Point, we see Scott as she is manoeuvred away from No. 1 jetty and turned in the River Tamar before heading out to sea. Scott is the third vessel to carry the name and is named after the famous Plymothian and Royal Navy officer Robert Falcon Scott, who led the expedition to the Antarctic in 1912. With a displacement of almost 15,000 tons, Scott is the largest vessel in the Royal Navy's hydrographic squadron, but is also the 5th largest vessel in the entire fleet, after the Queen Elizabeth carriers and Albion-class amphibious assault vessels. HMS Scott is the only ocean survey vessel in the fleet, and at 15,000 tons is the largest survey vessel in Western Europe. Powered by twin Krupp MAK 9-cylinder diesel engines, she is fitted with a single shaft and controllable pitch propeller, together with a retractable bow thruster, and her twin Krupp engines give her a maximum speed of 18 knots. Viewed from Corsan Fort, we see Scott as she passes the breakwater in Plymouth Sound. Built with a 25-year lifespan, in October 2017 it was announced by the Ministry of Defence that she would decommission in 2022. Although this date has believed to have been extended, with just over a year to her proposed decommissioning, there is yet no plans to replace her, at least with another naval vessel. Perhaps the most cost-effective proposal would be to prolong her life with another extensive refit at Devonport. On the 26th of April, we see HMS Portland as she is turned in the River Tamar and prepares to head out to sea as part of her extended sea trials after being released from her LifeX refit in March. Her LifeX refit took nearly 3 years, which included her 2 electric propulsion motors being removed, rewired and replaced, and the Seawolf missile system being replaced with the more advanced Sea Scepter. In addition, Portland has had the 997 surveillance and 1084 navigational radars added, and she is now equipped with a more advanced 2150 hull-mounted sonar, which is new to the Royal Navy, and this will improve her anti-submarine warfare capabilities. All these modifications mean that Portland will be able to serve the fleet for the next decade, with a scheduled decommissioning date of 2034, when she will be replaced by the new and far superior Type 26 and Type 31 frigates. Following a further period of post-refit sea trials, we see HMS Portland as she returns to her home base of Devonport on the 30th of April, crossing Firestone Bay as she rounds Drake's Island. HMS Portland is the 8th warship to bear the name, and was the 15th and penultimate Type 23 frigate to be constructed. She was built on the Clyde and launched on the 15th of May 1999, being commissioned into the fleet in May 2001, and more recently has just completed an extensive 3-year LifeX refit at Devonport. During sea trials following her construction, Portland attained a top speed of 30.8 knots, which at the time was the fastest speed ever attained by a Type 23 frigate. Following LifeX refits, this speed has been increased with the addition of a transom flap, which can add up to 1 knot, and intersleek anti-fouling paint, which can add 2 knots, and following these modifications, her sister, HMS Lancaster, was recorded as attaining 32 knots during speed trials. Portland has spent the last 3 years undergoing an extensive LifeX refit at Devonport, which will see her in active service for the next decade. The Type 23s will remain as the Royal Navy's final traditional style frigate design and will start to be replaced over the next decade with the new build Type 26, with HMS Portland due to decommission in 2034. In April, Devonport Naval Base played host to several visiting American ships, and at Frigate Alley we see amphibious transport dock ship USS San Antonio, together with USS Carter Hall, a Harper's Ferry class dock landing ship. Viewed at number 14 wharf, USS San Antonio is the lead ship of her class of amphibious transport dock or landing platform dock warships, and was the first ship of the United States Navy to be named after the city of San Antonio in Texas, the 7th largest city in the United States. With a displacement of 25,000 tons, she is 684 feet long and is 105 feet wide. She normally carries 4 Seahawk or Nighthawk helicopters and 2 MV-22 tilt-rotor aircraft, and on this occasion, whilst alongside at Devonport, on her deck were visible some United States Marines Super Cobras and Viper helicopters. Her keel was laid down on the 9th of December 2000 and was commissioned into the United States Navy in August 2005. Initially constructed at Avondale Shipyard in New Orleans, her completion was heavily delayed by problems at the yard, which resulted in her being towed to the North Grumman shipyards in Mississippi for completion in December 2004, eventually being completed some 3 years after her original scheduled commissioning date. USS San Antonio departed from Devonport on the 26th of April, and with a draft of 23 feet and a displacement of some 25,000 tons, we see her as she is carefully manoeuvred down the River Tamar as she heads out to sea. She has a crew complement of just under 700, of whom 66 are officers. She is armed with two 30mm Mark 46 cannons, which are used for surface threat defence, and for air defence, two rolling airframe missile launchers are used. In addition, she also carries four Seahawk or Nighthawk helicopters and two MV-22 tilt-rotor aircraft as well. USS San Antonio is normally based at the Naval Station in Norfolk, Virginia. She is the largest United States naval vessel to include stealth features, which is required that her major antennae are mounted on platforms inside two enclosed mast and sensor systems, rather than traditional yard arms, and her deck edges are bounded by shaped bulwarks, which are hollow and double up as storage space, rather than lifeline stanchions. In addition, her exterior equipment is recessed as much as is possible, which gives the ship her clean aesthetic appearance, and even the anchor and anchor pocket are shaped in a way so as to minimize radar backscatter. San Antonio is very much the US version of the Royal Navy's HMS Albion or Bulwark, and being amphibious transport dock or landing platform dock ships, as well as carrying its own aircraft, carries a variety of landing craft as well, including landing craft utility boats, which are used to transport equipment and troops to the shore, and are capable of transporting tracked or wheeled vehicles and troops to beachheads or piers. Also used are landing craft air cushion or LCACs, which are a class of air cushion vehicle or hovercraft that are used as landing craft by the United States Navy's assault craft units. We conclude this month's review with a look at HMS Magpie as a tribute to His Royal Highness Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, who passed away on the 9th of April at the age of 99. The name Magpie has a special place in the late Duke's heart, as he commanded a Black Swan class frigate named HMS Magpie from 1950 to 1953. Today's HMS Magpie is an inshore survey vessel and was commissioned into the fleet on the 28th of June 2018. She has the distinction, at just 37 tons displacement, of being the lightest commissioned ship in the Royal Navy. Based at Devonport, Magpie is intended for use on inshore and coastal survey work and was built by Safe Haven Marine here in the UK. She has accommodation for a crew of up to 12 for up to a week, and her twin diesel engines give her a maximum speed of up to 23 knots.